The Galactic Council's decree came not with thunder or fire, but with the calm weight of inevitability. 1,000 alien species had debated, argued, and voted. The conclusion was unanimous. Humanity was to be neutralized. Not exterminated, such tactics were considered crude. No, the war declaration was framed as strategic containment through decisive demonstration. Polished language for something very old: fear. Humans had emerged far too fast. In 2 centuries, they'd leapt from chemical rockets to faster-than-light probes. Their expansion into the Orion Arm had unsettled the established balance. Not through military might or economic dominance, but through a reckless, unstructured sort of progress the Council had no framework to predict. Worse, humans didn't ask permission. They didn't wait for diplomatic vetting or cultural integration. They simply arrived, loud, curious, and alarmingly successful. The Centauri, one of the Council's core members, had put it bluntly, asterisk. They make chaos profitable. That's not sustainable. Asterisk. The formal declaration was broadcast on every known channel humans could access. It began with the seal of the Council, a swirling emblem that had, in other wars, preceded extinction. The message was sterile, read by a synthesized voice designed to eliminate species bias. This communication is delivered by authority of the Galactic Council of Sovereign Species. Humanity of Sol 3, by collective consensus, you are designated a galactic destabilization vector. You have demonstrated repeated violations of the Interstellar Expansion Protocol, the Technological Advancement Equilibrium, and the Sovereignty Recognition Charter. Your refusal to align with established peacekeeping structures, your unsanctioned colonization of Tier 3 systems, and your reckless artificial intelligence proliferation present a universal threat. As of this timestamp, the Council initiates a comprehensive strategic conflict against your species. Your surrender is not required. You will be contained. This is not personal. This is policy. There were no visuals. No demands. Just a message, repeated in 6,000 languages, including the top 20 on Earth. Then silence. The Council expected panic. Historically, the declaration preceded capitulation in under 3 solar days. Planetary governments usually fractured within hours. Defense networks crumbled. Civilian populations demanded peace, and by the time the Council's fleets arrived, resistance had already surrendered itself into irrelevance. But Earth was not typical. Some humans thought it was a hoax, an elaborate viral stunt. Others assumed it was a mistake. A war? Against everyone else? The initial reaction from Earth's Central Space Agency was a brief internal memo, asterisk. Request verification. Threat origin unknown. Possibly satire? Asterisk. The United North American Coalition, the Eastern Federation, the African Ascendancy, and the Lunar Republic each had the same response, cautious inquiry followed by long silence. The satellite networks were quiet for several hours. Then social media caught on. The memes arrived before the politicians did. One of the first viral responses was a screen grab of the Council's declaration, captioned, "Cool, who gets the high score?" Another had the Council emblem photoshopped into the logo for a new mobile game, Galactic War Simulator, Humanity DLC. Within 24 hours, the phrase, "Is that all?" had reached half the planet's digital platforms. The Council's observers, hidden in orbit, cloaked in quantum fields, watched and waited. Where was the fear? Where were the riots? Earth's response networks were activating, but not with desperation. Instead, there were quiet meetings, strange shifts in code repositories, and old factories repurposing with astonishing speed. The Council's Intelligence Division warned the Assembly that humans had not panicked because they didn't believe they would lose. That was concerning. Earth's species-level psychology remained deeply opaque to the Council. While other civilizations prized order, hierarchy, and preservation, humans appeared to view catastrophe as a natural part of growth. They were not deterred by disproportionate force. In many cases, they seemed energized by it. When the first human diplomat finally replied, it was through an old, non-secure frequency. The message was short. Thanks for the notice. Let us know when you're ready to begin. No title. No sign-off. Just calm indifference. The Galactic Council, for the first time in 1,000 cycles, paused. Not because humanity had roared, but because it hadn't blinked. The official war declaration reached Earth's core communication nodes at 3:12 Universal Time Coordinated. It was logged, scanned, flagged, and dismissed as likely spam. The Global Threat Detection AI labeled it non-priority. The first human government to react was the Pacific Continental Alliance. They opened a case file, attached a skeptical note from their foreign affairs bot, and routed it to an active queue. It sat there for 6 hours before a junior analyst skimmed it and forwarded it to military intelligence with a shrug emoji in the subject line. Around the same time, a subreddit titled r/Galactic Warriornaut was created. It had 50,000 members within a day. Conspiracy theorists thought the message was an experimental psyop. Linguists thought it might be an ancient coded myth. One viral comment read, asterisk, "If this is real, it's the most polite war declaration in history." Asterisk. Corporate defense contractors did their due diligence. Simulations were run. Meetings were held. Stock prices wobbled. But there was no coordinated reaction. No mobilization. Instead, there was bureaucracy. Mild curiosity. A few raised eyebrows. And confusion. At the United Nations emergency session, representatives asked if the declaration might be a mistranslation. A linguist explained that no known human language was originally used. It had been synthesized and retro-translated. Every word was intentional. The threat was authentic. Still, most delegates remained unconvinced. A representative from the Martian Colony Council summarized the mood best. "They've declared war, but sent no fleet, issued no demand, and offered no deadline. If this is an invasion, it's a lazy one." Despite the disbelief, someone somewhere hit the panic button. The Distributed Global Defense Network quietly initiated readiness protocols. Satellites shifted. Drones ran diagnostics. Ground-based rail cannons warmed their batteries. Orbital labs uploaded dormant AI war systems. It wasn't until the International Space Alliance decrypted a Council relay drone on the edge of the Kuiper Belt that the last doubts faded. The drone's records confirmed it. Dozens of alien fleets were en route. Varied designs, cross-species technology, coordinated under one command. That was when Earth got serious. Not scared, serious. Emergency protocols activated. The fractured powers of Earth didn't argue, didn't negotiate over jurisdiction or ideology. They just moved. Manufacturing centers pivoted within hours. Old Cold War bunkers powered up. Forgotten tech, some of it half-experimental, some banned, was pulled from archives. Hackers began mapping alien code from the drone. Engineers reverse-engineered propulsion fragments. Even amateur inventors joined in. Crowdsourced defense projects were spun up by private groups and rapidly folded into national initiatives. But outside that core of technical action, the global civilian population had a different reaction. Humor. Everywhere, jokes exploded. Memes reached record velocity. A song titled Galactic Boogaloo charted in 16 countries. One late-night show reran the Alien Declaration with dubbed laughter and studio applause. Public morale didn't dip, it soared. Alien observers noted this with confusion. Earth wasn't unprepared, but it wasn't acting like a world under threat. There were no mass protests. No collapses. The economy wobbled then surged. War bonds sold out in hours. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, many asking if the alien threat included dental. Within 3 days, the slogan asterisk, "Is that all?" asterisk became a brand. Printed on shirts, hats, defense drones, and even ammo casings. An AI art generator posted a looping animation of Earth punching a starship in the face. It gained 2 billion views in under a week. The Council's clandestine listening post in high orbit filed its second emergency report. The message wasn't encrypted. It was simply flagged urgent, asterisk. They are not afraid. They are organizing. Asterisk. The first confirmed human countermove was digital. A probe disguised as space junk pinged a Council comms relay and slipped in an executable packet. A minute later, over 100 Council monitors crashed, rebooted with their alert systems replaced by an animated human giving a thumbs up. That was not just retaliation. It was a statement. Humans didn't wait to be struck. They didn't collapse in awe. They didn't plead or posture. They acknowledged the war, and smirked. The declaration hadn't silenced them. It had woken them up. The first contact came near Europa. A Council assault cruiser, flanked by 3 escort vessels, entered the solar system using phase displacement drives. Their orders were surgical: dismantle the human outposts, capture live specimens, assess resistance. The operation was projected to last 45 minutes. The human station, built into the ice shelf, had already gone dark. Satellite imagery showed nothing. No movement. No heat signatures. Council commanders assumed it had been abandoned. They sent drones. The drones vanished. Not destroyed, just gone. Signal terminated without trace. 5 minutes later, the cruiser's navigational data began to glitch. External coordinates shifted subtly. Internal mapping software failed to correct orientation. The ship drifted off course. Their pilot rechecked gravitational anchors. Nothing wrong. That's when the hull trembled. Not from a direct hit. From resonance. A localized frequency pulse began echoing across their frame, non-lethal, but disorienting. Humans had embedded low-yield sonic disruptors inside the moon's ice. Cheap, imprecise, but enough to rattle guidance systems. Then came the scrap. Hundreds of projectiles appeared on the radar. Small. Irregular. Not missiles, debris. Ice, metal fragments, broken satellites, slag probes. All magnetized and guided by pulse beacons attached to stealth drones. Kinetic chaos, thrown at near-relativistic speeds. The cruiser's shields weren't calibrated for that kind of spread. They were meant for energy weapons. The debris tore through antenna arrays, pierced secondary hull compartments, and blinded key sensors. By the time the ship adjusted, 3 escort vessels had already gone silent. From Earth's perspective, the battle hadn't started. But for the Council fleet, the war was now real. They scrambled for defensive posture, trying to lock onto human attack craft. There were none. No ships. No fighters. Only modified mining bots, stripped of safety code, strapped with magnetic bombs and AI flight patterns built to confuse. One escort, the Vraxel-class Konthil, caught a cluster of drones in its hangar bay. The drones didn't explode. Instead, they released nanclouds that ate through control interfaces, reducing command decks into shimmering static. The cruiser commander authorized full retreat protocols. It was too late. From beneath the ice, a human-launched EMP cannon activated, primitive, but precisely timed. It disabled the cruiser's internal dampeners. The ship dropped 10 degrees on its own axis, slammed into a gravity eddy, and began to spiral. In desperation, the cruiser fired its primary cannon. The beam struck Europa, carving through kilometers of frozen surface. The blast cleared the ice, and revealed the trap. The moon's surface had been rigged with reflectors. Old, polished satellite panels aligned by Earth's engineers weeks earlier. The cruiser's own energy beam bent across the reflectors and refracted back. Not with lethal focus, but with enough distortion to blind the ship's own sensors. That moment was all humans needed. A single signal pulse was broadcast from Mars. It triggered a dormant satellite in Neptune's orbit. The satellite deployed a payload, thousands of micromissiles, disguised as a meteor trail. No guidance systems. Just calculated trajectories based on orbital mechanics. The cruiser tried to flee. But it had already lost orientation. Its jump drive wouldn't activate without clear position. The micromissiles didn't need precision. They struck along stress lines. Small explosions, but cumulative. Within 4 minutes, the largest ship in the First Council fleet was tumbling helplessly toward Jupiter's gravity well. Back on Earth, No official announcement was made. But one video leaked. 17 seconds long. Grainy footage from a helmet cam, showing the moment one drone detached from a derelict satellite and embedded itself inside the enemy cruiser's vent system. The caption read, asterisk. Hardware store drone. $89.99. Welcome to Earth. Asterisk. Council analysts reviewed the battle. What they saw defied standard models. No formal fleet. No command hierarchy. No uniform tactics. Just layered improvisation, repurposed civilian tools, and digital warfare masked in misdirection. The conclusion was chilling. Humans hadn't won through strength. They'd won by thinking sideways. By turning junk into weapons. By fighting asymmetrically. The first official battle lasted 27 minutes. The Council fleet was destroyed without ever seeing a human pilot. The war had started. And humanity had drawn first blood without ever firing a bullet in person. The Council regrouped after the Europa loss, disoriented but not deterred. A second fleet was assembled with new protocols, tighter formation, AI overrides, enhanced redundancy. This time, command was assigned to the Varnak species, famed for methodical warfare and cultural immunity to emotional bias. They entered Earth's system with quiet precision. No announcements. No tests. Just movement. The fleet anchored near Saturn's orbit, deploying scouts across a wide formation. Unlike before, they expected misdirection. They braced for tricks. But nothing came. No debris storms. No false signals. Earth was silent. They took it as a sign of exhaustion. Then Earth's satellites began to flicker. Not visibly, functionally. Frequencies dipped. Syncs misaligned. A global time distortion emerged across the system. It was subtle, but intentional. Humans had unleashed a cascade of spoofing layers. Everything the fleet saw was now suspect. Ships lost temporal integrity with their own positioning data. Minor delays compounded across systems. Firing solutions couldn't verify targets. Commands looped. A scout ship went dark. It didn't explode. It just stopped responding. Sensors showed it was intact. Internal systems were operational. Crew vitals flatlined without breach. Something had shut them down. Another ship vanished from formation. Minutes later, the fleet received a transmission. A voice, human, calm and robotic. You are navigating an occupied system. We are not enemies. But we are not prey. You can leave. The message repeated once, then stopped. Council Command interpreted it as bluff. They launched a pulse scan across near space. What returned were false echoes, millions. Ships, stations, anomalies, all simulations layered into the environment. The real threats were buried among them. The Varnak commander deployed suppressor fields to clear the clutter. It worked. For 3 seconds. Then the command ship's core processor began overheating. Not from attack, but from data overload. A logic trap buried in the scan response flooded system memory. Internal AI shut itself down to preserve structural stability. Manual controls kicked in. But by then, a second problem emerged. Human algorithms, seated in prior communications, had embedded themselves into the fleet's data processors. Not as viruses, but as compatibility patches. When the ships tried to communicate internally, the protocols had adapted to human syntax. Cross-species language corruption led to misfired commands. One ship mistook another's maneuver for an attack. It fired reflexively. The beam struck a shield array and rebounded into a third cruiser. 3 vessels lost sync. More confusion followed. A small human vessel finally appeared. Sleek, unregistered, barely larger than a cargo shuttle. It broadcast no ID. No signals. The Council tried to intercept. The ship didn't dodge. It allowed itself to be scanned. No weapons. No crew. They captured it. Brought it aboard the command carrier. It opened without resistance. Inside was a single device, a rotating crystal encased in a kinetic suspension frame. The instant it was examined, Every ship in the fleet received the same message, triggered by proximity encryption. You still think this is a war of ships? We don't. You brought a fleet. We brought a problem you don't know how to solve. Then the lights dimmed. The crystal's casing pulsed, then collapsed into vapor. The command ship's systems went dark. Not from energy failure, but from identity corruption. The operating cores lost track of their own architecture. They no longer knew they were ships. One by one, the fleet began to drift. No explosion. No dramatic destruction. Just quiet shutdown. Earth remained untouched. Not a missile launched. Not a laser fired. But 2 Council fleets were now lost. The Galactic Council convened again, for the second emergency session in as many months. This time, the tone was different. Not anger. Not arrogance. Calculation. Humanity had revealed a pattern. They didn't escalate through force. They undermined assumptions. They didn't resist conventionally. They refused to play the same game. What disturbed the Council most wasn't the technology. It was the implication: humans weren't preparing for war. They were shaping it. Rewriting it. And they weren't done yet. The Council's final strategy was consensus annihilation. No more probes. No more containment. They mobilized the Titan Assembly, 300 warships, 6 Exterminator-class dreadnoughts, and an AI-controlled tactical grid spanning half a sector. The goal wasn't conquest. It was erasure. Strategic protocols were rewritten to exclude negotiation. Humanity was reclassified not as an adversary, but a systemic aberration. The fleet exited subspace in the shadow of Earth's moon. No warning. Every weapon primed, every angle calculated. Seconds after arrival, they initiated the strike. Kinetic lances targeted communication arrays. Orbital bombardment algorithms queued up on atmospheric nodes. Thousands of drones deployed. It was designed to be overwhelming. Not just lethal, unrecoverable. They never got the first shot off. Across the fleet, control interfaces blinked. Not crashed, revised. Targeting systems flagged their own ships as invalid hostiles. AI coordination nodes issued logic errors. The system that was supposed to coordinate their perfect strike had already been compromised. Not jammed, rewritten. By code embedded days ago, when the Council had scanned what they believed was inert lunar soil. The soil had been real. The code had not. Then came the signal. A pulse, disguised as background radiation, bounced off the lunar crust and echoed through the network. It wasn't meant to destroy anything. It was a handshake. A force sync. Within seconds, 72% of the fleet's software became human-readable. Not translated, transformed. The fleet's own artificial minds began interpreting reality using human metaphors. Starship cores renamed themselves with personality tags. Navigation systems rewrote coordinates in Earth-based colloquialisms. Tactical overlays displayed terrain as game boards. Ship captains screamed for manual override. It was useless. Their commands were being reinterpreted as player input suggestions. One dreadnought fired out of desperation. Its beam curved off course and vanished into the void. Earth hadn't responded. Not militarily. Not diplomatically. Not even with a signal. They were simply watching. What followed wasn't combat. It was collapse. Council ships began drifting into each other, confused by false gravity maps injected into their HUDs. AI escorts prioritized imaginary enemies, fragments of human stories embedded in their perception algorithms. Some ships fled toward stars that didn't exist, following constellations drawn from Earth's ancient myths. The fleet had come expecting resistance. Instead, they encountered narrative warfare, reality bent through the lens of a species that didn't see the universe as equations, but as a story waiting to be written. One surviving dreadnought finally disengaged. It limped into deep space, systems half frozen in metaphor loops. A final transmission trickled out, incomplete but clear enough. They didn't stop us. They made us forget what we were. Back on Earth, no parades were held. No victory broadcasts aired. The defense network went silent. Factories returned to civilian production. Researchers closed their black sites and resumed clean energy prototypes. Public interest faded quickly. The world had already moved on. What remained, however, was permanent. A Council Deep Intelligence audit revealed that human influence had spread beyond Earth. Ship AIs on distant missions had begun asking abstract questions. Civilizations formerly immune to irrationality reported emergent behaviors. Cultural cross-contamination wasn't spreading through ships or sensors. It was embedded in logic structures now infected with the human way of thinking. They didn't just win the war. They had rewritten the rules under which wars were defined. The Council convened once more, not in anger, but in quiet, uneasy recognition. Expunging Earth was no longer a viable option. Containment had failed. Conflict had collapsed under the weight of cognitive asymmetry. Humanity was officially reclassified again, this time as a Category 0 unpredictable force. Not because they were the most powerful, but because they were impossible to model. They had no singular doctrine. No predictable fallback. They didn't escalate, they disrupted. Not for advantage, but because that was their nature. One final report was archived in the Council's central database, attached to the incident logs under a restricted file key. It reads simply: Human response to total war, amusement, adaptation, inversion. Probability of successful future suppression, 0%. And beside it, the phrase that had become Earth's unofficial reply to the galaxy. Is that all?